Now, State of the Union Address, as I like to call it. Let me tell you some of the stuff that's been going on this year and what's going on now and is planned for the coming year. The primary aim of High Street Methodist Church is to see lives and relationships and communities in this world transformed by God's love. That's what we're longing to see. And just as God the Father sent Jesus, his Son, into the world, so Jesus is sending us into the world. And our purpose is nothing more and nothing less than to continue Jesus' earthly ministry, to continue doing what Jesus wants us to do. And the gospel accounts of Jesus' ministry are accounts of lives and relationships and communities being transformed by God's love. And through the ministry of Jesus, ordinary people were forgiven, they were healed, they were set free, they were welcomed into the glorious kingdom of God. And through the earthly ministry of Jesus, ordinary people, they were, as our mission coordinators are named, they were able to encounter God, to be equipped as God's people and to go out and help extending God's kingdom. At last year's big day in, we launched our Greater Things initiative. The phrase greater things comes from a promise of Jesus, who said this: "I tell you the truth, anyone who has faith in me will do what I've been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." Information about our Greater Things initiative can be found in these booklets that were published last year, and there's still some at the back. Please, if you haven't got one, take them away. That phrase, greater things, we've sort of expounded it in that book, and ultimately we believe God is calling us to do more of what you see on the screen, but beyond that as well. The video we've just seen demonstrates just a few of those greater things that we're starting to see happening. But when we think of church, it's easy to think of that. What happens in this building when we all get together? And think, well, that is the mission, the ministry of the church. But that's only a tiny little part of it. The greatest impact of High Street Methodist Church isn't what goes on for the few hours we gather together in a week. It's when we disperse as Christians into our homes and workplaces and neighborhood. That is where the greatest impact for God is meant to be happening. And I suggest is happening. When Jesus spoke to his followers about having an impact on the world, he talked like this. He said, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and praise your Father in heaven." The primary mission strategy of the church is to spend the few hours that we gather together in the week inspiring one another to shine more brightly for Christ when we go and live out the rest of our lives. That should be our aim. The focus shouldn't be what we're doing here. The focus should be what we're doing out there. The London Institute for Contemporary Christianity illustrates it like this. I like this. This is what the church looks like when it gathers in the corner of the community, separated from the rest of its life. And this is what it looks like when we leave here. We spread out throughout the rest of our community and neighborhood. And it's good that we do stuff together. Because when we're together, we can have an impact which is more than us each individually having an impact on our own. So we touch, when we're together, quite a few parts of our community with the mission initiatives that we've got. But the thing is, when we're out and spread, we can touch collectively far, far more than when we're just together. You see? Spreading out is the way Jesus got his disciples, first generations of disciples, to do ministry. He sent them out 2 by 2 so that they could have a bigger impact. Our seminars later today are all about inspiring and encouraging and equipping you and me to have a greater impact in the world outside these walls, wherever we may spend our time, whenever we're not here. And this is what our official church strategy that we agreed 5 years ago is aiming at, to help as many people as possible to encounter God, to be equipped as God's people, to go out into the world, to share in extending God's kingdom. And in order for us to get better at this, over the past 12 months, as we said at last year's Big Day In, we've been starting to work on 3 fairly fundamental reviews. Maggie Grand, our pastoral secretary, has been leading a review of our pastoral care systems. And we've adopted a new bit of software called Church Suite to keep the records of our members and friends at High Street, which is why I'm able to tell you that we have 1,102 people right now who look to High Street as their church. And that's made up of 774 adults and 328 children. The figures in attendance are up and down like a yo-yo. But in the last month, we've had at least a couple of Sundays where we've had well over 100 children here on a Sunday morning, which is just fantastic, and a sign that so many young people and young families are finding their home here. To have ever greater numbers of people in our care it's a great privilege, but it's also, we recognise as a leadership team, it's a massive responsibility. And we're aiming to be ever more effective in the way we pastor and disciple and communicate with every person. And that's what that pastoral review's all about. John Harris, though, our gift aid secretary, has been leading a review of our pledged giving, trying to help us to become more generous financially with the work of God in this church. And we're grateful to all of you who do give consistently to the work that goes on here. If you've not already started to give regularly, and the ideal is straight from your bank account into the church's bank account and gift aid it if you're a taxpayer. If you've not already done that, can I please urge you to do that? Because there is so much we feel God's calling us to do that actually costs so much money, not least employing people. And, that's what, as we're growing, we want to support the work here, and your giving is vital to that. The third review is the buildings review. And I've lost count of the number of people who've come up to me and said, how's the building scheme going? And all this sort of thing. So I'm going to tell you. So we, over the last 12 months, the project team tasked with taking the building scheme forward have done an awful lot of work. Let me just list some of it, if my clicker will work. So they have, on our behalf, appointed Katie Duggan of JBKS as our architect. They have liaised with her to draft some designs for the church. They have worked with her on an outline design for the extension of Wesley's and the development of the rear rooms. They have been helping to perfect a phenomenal, when you get to see it, it's going to wow you as it wowed us, a 3-dimensional model, which means you actually walk around the building as it will look if we go for what they're saying would work for us. They have also, this project team, been meeting with the conservation officer of the Methodist Church and members of the listed building advisory committee, and who spent a whole day here looking at what we were possibly going to do and giving us some advice. And the team have also started building up a development business plan so that we can see how can we afford it, what are the costs going to be during the process of development, how we're going to run afterwards with an extended Wesley's and other things. So that's what they've done this last year. And each stage along the way they've taken a great deal of care and time over it. And we've still a number of stages further to negotiate before the draft designs can see the light of day, really. So our next things that we're doing, we're in the process of employing planning consultant, an acoustics consultant, a fundraising consultant, to make sure we understand how those things are going to operate. They will then seek the guidance of the local planning authority to ensure that any proposed designs are likely to be given permission. We don't want to come and ask permission of the church council for designs that then are not likely to pass through planning. So that pre-planning application is quite vital. And then once we've heard from the planners what we are going to be allowed to do, we think we're going to then put together the final master plan design for the whole site, because we want the whole site, if you remember, to be an integrated whole and not just a piecemeal. Then we are hoping that we'll be in a position to present designs to the church council this coming summer. Can't say when this coming summer, because I gather the local planners might take a better getting around the table to talk to us. But when we've got everything lined up and ready to share with the church council, that's what we'll be doing. And beyond what the church council says, hopefully then those plans will be on public display. As the project team, this is a massive amount of work. Just listing it tires me out. So do pray for the project team as they continue to sensitively and wisely take forward this work, because it's wonderful what they're doing, and it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to sharing it with the rest of the church. But doing the groundwork is a bit painstaking. At the same time as those three reviews, the pastoral, the giving, the buildings review, our church leadership team have recently undertaken a review of our present and future staffing needs. Now, many of you will know that my amazing ministerial colleague, Deacon Angie Allport, will be leaving at the end of the summer. I know. And she's going to Hereford. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be great. God's called you there, so it's going to be brilliant. It's lovely. But her last Sunday here is going to be Sunday the 14th of July, when we really don't start saying goodbye to her yet, because that will be a very long goodbye. But 14th of July, put it in your diary, where we'll, in the morning, make a fuss of her in our morning services, and then there's a circuit farewell service for her here in the afternoon, I think 4 o'clock on the 14th of July. Sadly, though, we have no successor for Angie, or at least it looks unlikely until September 2020. There's a shortage of ministers, diaconal and presbyteral at the moment, and it just so happens that there weren't any deacons spare for us. So our leadership team have drafted a proposal, and next month that will be brought to the church council, who will have the final say on whether this proposal is the right one for us or not. But I'm going to tell you about it anyway, because you're nosy. And you are the general church meeting, and it's right that you know what we're thinking. So the draft proposal is that in addition to the deacon, that we would employ 2 more people to come onto our staff team. And because of the job roles these 2 people will have, we'll then also alter the profile for Angie's successor. The diaconal role here, we think, will change as well. And we're quite excited about this. So if the plan is agreed by Church Council, then this is what it'll look like. From September 2019, if not before, we will be employing a pastoral lay worker who will support myself and Maggie, the pastoral secretary, in, amongst other things, responding to pastoral emergencies, ensuring that our housebound members are regularly visited, regularly receive communion, and basically make sure that the pastoral part of what Angie does not disappear. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for the church. And to be quite frank, it wouldn't be good for my health either. I might need pastoral visiting. So we're getting suggesting a part-time pastoral lay worker, I think initially starting at 15 hours. And then at the same time, we're seeking to employ a full-time children's and families worker. 328 children on our books. That's a massive amount of work and ministry to be done. And we've recognised as a leadership team, that's a growth area and we need to invest in it. We need, someone with the expertise to lead our children's team. And so we're excited about that. Are you excited about that? I hope you're excited enough to give more money so that we can afford it. That'll be great. But it's great. We really want to be more effective in our support of the young families, in their Christian discipleship, in being part of this church. We've got an amazing team, mainly of volunteers, doing this work at the moment. We want someone to come in with expertise to head up that team and take us to the next level. And then we'd like to revise the profile for our new deacon, whoever that person may be. I don't know, nobble Ruth afterwards because, she's got influence. But we recognise that one of the other areas we'd really like to be more effective in is in those who have just come across our threshold for the first time. So those who are newcomers. And that's, for some of you here, that's a recent experience. You've recently come to High Street for the first time. And we want your experience, the experience for those who walk across the threshold, to be a phenomenally powerful one. We don't want it to be scary. We want them to feel part of this church as soon as possible, become embedded within the life of the church, become a member of the church, to use their gifts within the life of the church, become a part of a home group. We want to sort of streamline and make that a more effective system. So part of the role we would love for Angie's replacement is to head that up, really looking after and walking alongside those who haven't been part of the church and are now part of the church. Does that sound good? Yes. So some of you are still awake. It remains the case, however, that most of the work of God here is not done by ministers. It's not done by those we employ. It is done by volunteers, the members of this church stepping up and signing up for rotas and using their gifts in the life of the church. That most of the work that happens here happens because of that and couldn't happen without the volunteers. And the reason why we have ministers and we're growing the staff team is to encourage and support and to enable every single member of High Street to be a faithful servant of Christ, giving generously of their time, their energies, their gifts, their money to further God's work. And so I want to end really by encouraging you, if not in some cases maybe challenging you in three areas. First of all, please commit to pray every day. Pray more. we're asking you to go deeper in your faith. If we're not connected, each of us, with God, then we are disconnected from the source of all our power. And it shouldn't just be, don't rely on the ministers to do all our praying. Every member of this church, we want to, all the newcomers, we want you to be connected, fully connected with God. We want you to pray and read your Bible every day. We want to ask you to prioritize being in worship. Because it's not just for you that you come to worship. It's so you can build up the faith of your sisters and brothers when you're here, worshipping alongside them. And we want you to commit to being part of a home group if you're not already part of a home group. If you are, don't miss your home group. Secondly, we want to challenge you to serve. In the Greater Booklets, Things booklet, you'll find in there, and there's some leaflets at the back with them on, you've got a volunteer pathway that shows how to start on the way to road to volunteering, and once you're on it, what the next step is for you. So we challenge you to find out where you are on that volunteer pathway and take the next step this year. Right now we have a number of volunteer opportunities that we really do need to fill, and on the red boards at the back, I think the one on the left on the way out, you will see them advertised. We've not put everything you can possibly volunteer up there. We've put particularly the volunteer vacancies that that we need to fill them. And it could be you who fills those. So go and look at them, see what connects with you, what fits in with all your other commitments, and what marries up with your gifting. And I think the instructions on there of what to do once you've worked out, that's for me, who to speak to. If in doubt, always speak to Louise, the administrator in the office. And she's available there every morning of the week. Or you can email her. Finally, it's been mentioned already, but we really do want to challenge you to be generous givers. So that we can do greater things for God. Again, in the Greater Things booklet, you'll find a financial giving pathway. Whether you're a beginner in giving occasionally or already giving a fixed percentage of your income in a regular and planned way, we want you to consider where you are on the giving road and whether you can take that next step to go to the next level. Okay, I've talked too much. And I need you to be in good shape for our amazing Treasurer's financial report. So you can shake yourself down and energize. Okay, I want you to turn to your neighbour and tell them what excites you at High Street at the moment. What excites you at High Street? Turn to your neighbour